Okay, so good morning, everyone. We are in week 10 now. We have 5 more weeks of classes to go, and then we'll go into our examination weekend. That will be the end of week, or end of semester one. And then you have your final semester, second semester, in a few weeks' time. And our topic for this week is climate change, which is a very important topic. And all of you future leaders and policymakers, you should be discussing about climate change, talking about what's happening and trying to find solutions for our country, for the region, and for the planet as a whole. So to continue the discussion this morning, we will start off with group 2, and Representative Kathleen will answer the assigned question. Ms. Charlotte, please go ahead.
Can you all hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and Mr. Yagira. Before I answer our question, I would like to apologize on behalf of the group for Monday we didn't get to present. Yeah, that's on that. Now moving on to answer the question. So the question given to us is, according to Gerard, Amin, and Watson, how does climate change worsen water and food security in the Pacific? So according to University of Maryland, the definition of climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns that we all know. Over the years, changes in climate change have evolved drastically, becoming the most important security threat currently faced by the Pacific Island countries and territories. Many professionals have written about the subject and discovered that climate change has many aspects that needs to be addressed. Therefore, just like all the other professional researchers, Girard, Hamin, and Watson identified how climate change worsens water and food security in the Pacific. So before we identify the cause of how climate change worsens water and food security in the Pacific, we need to understand that water and food security is simply referring to the accessibility of water and the production of food. In the Pacific Island countries, there is less quantity of water, and because Pacific region is greatly affected by climate change, countries in the Pacific find themselves faced with the struggle in growing healthy agricultural produce. Before we move on to answer the question, we have to know that the cause of climate change lies back to our human activities. So we are partly to be blamed to the drastic changes that are happening to the climate change. So instead of blaming climate change for what's happening, we have to look at ourselves. Now move on to answering the question, how climate change worsens water and food security in the Pacific according to Girard, Amin, and Watson. So as discussed in the required reading, the perspective on Pacific security future currents, page 23 to 26, climate change worsens water and food security through common well conflicting dynamics. Through reading the reading, we identified that common conflicting dynamics is one of the major causes in how climate change is worsening water and food security in the Pacific. It is a common common conflicting dynamics. It is when a larger powers dominantly take action to help the Pacific Island countries towards sustainability and solve their problems, as well as simultaneously they are the ones contributing to escalating the very threat they are fighting to address. Hence, many Pacific Island countries find themselves confronted in situations where the actions of their geopolitical allies are often in direct conflict with their own security needs. That is according to Gerard, Amin, and Watson, page 23. The concept of common conflicting dynamics is similar to Australia's policy paradox, as highlighted by Glover 2012, and contradictory politics of New Zealand's climate change policies in the Pacific, as mentioned by Barrett, Kurian, and Wright 2015. A good example of common conflicting dynamic is given in page 23 about the Australia's response to the recent Pacific Islands Forum meeting in August 2019. When most of the Pacific Island countries articulated climate change as an urgent security need, Australia pledged a 500 million Australian dollar to the cause of addressing climate change. Meanwhile, Australia simultaneously expressed an unwillingness to examine its use of coal, seabed mining, and extractive industries, which are the major contributing factor of climate change. So how does this relate to how climate change worsens water and food security? The unwillingness of the larger power countries to examine their mining and factory activities in the Pacific accumulates to drastic changes in climate, which can lead to severe drought, hurricanes, heavy rain that can turn into flood, and many others. So with drought worsens water accessibility in the Pacific Island countries, which is a water security threat in the Pacific, considering the limited access to fresh water supply. In addition, many of the islands among the Pacific Island countries are very small and their soil is not fertile enough to grow crops. So when there is a drought, growing of crops is totally impossible. So people resort to purchasing store goods. Around 9 or 10 years ago, due to vast changes in climate change, Kiribati, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu joined the National Adaptation Program of Action project funded by Least Developed Countries Funds. This project integrates building community resilience and decreasing vulnerability of consequences of climate change. Therefore, now in Tuvalu, backyard farming is very popular. So in a nutshell, men's and environment security cannot be separated because they are interconnected. What happens to the other will have an impact on another. Therefore, according to Gerard, Amin, and Watson, climate change worsens water and food security through common conflicting dynamics. Thank you, and that's all from Group 2.
Thank you, Ms. Salot, and thank you, Group 2, for a detailed answer. We now move on to Group 4, Ms. Pongi.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so the question that we got assigned to this week is how does Crimp and others explain that climate change is contributing to the geographical spread of diseases and pests? So firstly, geographical spread refers to the distribution of something across geographical areas. So as stated in the PDF titled Perspective on Pacific Security, under the article titled COVID-19 and Climate, COVID-19 and Climate, Threat Multipliers to Pacific Food and Nutrition Security, page 42, by Crimp and others. So it stated that climate change is contributing to the geographical spread of diseases and pests. So through this reading, we have come to understand that climate change has had an effect on extreme weather events. As cyclones were used often in this reading, it's these extreme weather events that climate change has an impact on, and that spreads diseases and pests. So aside from what was stated by Crimp and others, according to Scandis and others, 2021, insects are poikilothermic organisms where the temperature of their body depends on the temperature of the environment. So therefore, temperature is probably the most important environmental factor affecting insect behavior and other aspects. In addition, climate change creates new ecological niches that provide pests to establish and spread in new regions and shift from one region to another. Whereas in terms of diseases, climate change also affects the ability of individuals to access and use food effectively by altering the conditions for food safety and increasing the risk of vector, water, and foodborne diseases. So to conclude, it's evident that climate change plays a big role in food production and affects food security. And production throughout the Pacific Islands will be affected by climate change due to the loss of coastal lands, contamination of groundwater, and other severe weather events such as cyclones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pongi. Now let's listen to Ms. Nugan Ila, representing Group 5.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Good morning, Mr. Yagira and class. I will be representing Group 5 to present our answer to the question, in what way does CRIMP and others discuss the connection between PNG's ban on frozen poultry products from Australia and Asia and climate change? The article titled Food Systems in the Face of Climate Change, Reviewing the State of Research in the South Pacific Island by CRIMP and others, likely provides an overview and analysis of the existing research and impact of climate change on food systems in the South Pacific Island countries. It likely explores various aspects such as the vulnerability of food system in the South Pacific Islands to climate change related hazards such as sea level rise, extreme weathers, events, and changes in precipitation patterns. The implication of climate change for agriculture, fisheries, and food security in the region, adoption, strategies, and measures implemented or proposed to enhance the resilience of food system in the face of climate change, the role of policies, governance structure, and international cooperation in addressing climate change impacts on food system in the South Pacific Island. And lastly, potential pathways for future research and action to better understand and address the challenges faced by climate change to food system in the region. PNG has placed a ban on imports of poultry from Australia and selected Asian countries to reduce the probability of an outbreak of avian influenza. Given these imports accounted for 70% of total imports in the recent years, such a reduction in supply has serious economic implications. Now to answer our question, CRIMP and others 2023 discuss various aspects of food system in the context of climate change in the South Pacific Islands. One of the connections they explore in Papua New Guinea's ban on frozen poultry products from Australia and Asia is the ban on frozen poultry products can be seen as a response to both economic and environmental concerns worsened by climate change. On one end, PNG may seek to protect its domestic poultry industry from competition, which can be particularly vulnerable to fluctuation in the global markets and climate-related challenges. On the other hand, the ban may also be driven by environmental considerations, as the transportation of frozen poultry products involves significant carbon emission, contributing to climate change. By analyzing policies such as this ban within the broader context of climate change and food system in the South Pacific Islands, the authors aim to shed light on the complex relationship between environmental factors, economic considerations, and food security in the region. This perspective helps us to highlight the complicated challenges faced by Pacific Island nations as they navigate the impacts of climate change on their food systems and seek to develop sustainable solutions. To conclude, addressing the impacts of climate change on food security in the Pacific requires integrated strategies that incorporate climate adaptation measures, sustainable agriculture practices, ecosystem conservation, disaster risk reduction, and community resilience building. Collaboration between governments, local communities, NGOs, and international organizations is crucial to developing and implementing effective solutions to ensure food security in the face of climate change. Thank you, and that's all from Group 5.
Thank you, Willa, and thank you, Group 5. Let's listen to Group 6. Ms. Timo, Wilma.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me? All right. Once again, good morning, Mr. Yegura, the CA Force and PG Force. I will be presenting on behalf of my group. So the question for this week's tutorial reads, according to Kin, why do Pacific leaders often express frustration regarding the lack of responsiveness to their appeals for action on climate change? The answer can be found in the Development Bulletin on Perspective on Pacific Security, page 7. So according to Kin 2021, there are several reasons why Pacific leaders express their frustration regarding the lack of responsiveness to their appeals for action to address climate change issue. Now, firstly, climate change poses an existential threat to many of the Pacific Island communities, and this has prompted them to take immediate action to address this. However, they did not receive feedback from international organizations like the UN for their appeal to take action on this issue. Secondly, there was ineffectiveness of global efforts. Despite having strong advocacy and active participation in international climate forums, global efforts to address the impacts of climate change have proven ineffective. This has led to the frustrations among Pacific Islands due to the passive lack of support from other countries and international organizations in addressing the impacts of climate change on the national security and development of Pacific Island countries. Thirdly, there was a lack of resource. The Pacific Island countries face resource limitations in addressing the impacts of climate change locally. Much more political, human, and financial investment will be required to build local resilience. With few resources, PICs are tapping into global climate funds and donor-supported programs to enhance local action, but resources continue to fall short of needs. Another reason is the mixed effectiveness of domestic actions because not all challenges are on the global stage. Efforts to improve climate security domestically have shown varying degrees of ineffectiveness, with challenges such as ineffective seawalls. Rapid urbanization without strong planning is creating more climate vulnerability, and water, sanitation, and food security are being adversely affected by the interplay of population pressures, resource limitations, and climate change. And last but not least, addressing climate change effectively requires a transformation of resource management practices and better engagement with community groups to enhance social connectivity, sustainability, and action. In conclusion, Kin has stated some of the important reasons why the Pacific leaders frequently express their frustration about the lack of response they get from international organizations and other countries when they call for immediate actions to mitigate climate change impacts within their Pacific communities. As mentioned already, Pacific leaders often express frustration regarding the lack of responsiveness to their appeal for action on climate change due to the ineffectiveness of global efforts, resource limitation in addressing climate change impacts locally, and mixed effectiveness of domestic actions. Thank you, and that's all from Group 6. You all have a great day and a blessed weekend ahead.
Thank you, Wilma and Group 6. We now move on to the final presenter, but if you have any questions or comments, you know the process. You can use our discussion forum for this week and share whatever comments or questions you have in regards to the presentations. So far from Wilma, from Talitha, from Kathleen, and who was the other presenter? Yeah, Wilma, Talitha, Kathleen, Ila, and yeah, the four of them. So we'll move on to our final presenter for this period or this session. That's Rosa representing Group 7. Please, Rosa, go ahead.
Can you all hear me? David, can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Thank you, Rosa. Loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and Mr. Yegiora. So the question that was assigned to Group 7 is, what does the PNG National Security Policy state regarding climate change? Now, before we proceed on to giving our response to the assigned question, we'll define the term climate change. According to the United Nations website, climate change refers to the long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. It is the notable changes in the usual weather patterns, such as increased temperatures, precipitation levels, or desiccation, occurring over an extended period of several decades or more. Or in other words, it simply refers to the changes in weather, temperature, precipitation due to greenhouse gas emissions. What sets climate change apart from natural weather fluctuations is its long-term trajectory, showcasing a shift in environmental conditions that can have far-reaching impacts on ecosystems, people, and economies. Now, the major cause of climate change is the emissions of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, and water vapor due to human activities, which retains heat that would escape into space from the Earth's surface. The major effect of climate change is global warming, and the human activities that alter climate change calamities include industrialization and deforestation. For instance, the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas produces greenhouse gases that are harmful to the ozone layer. In response to the question, according to the National Security Policy, open quote, climate change is a pressing global issue that directly impacts PNG's national security stemming from alterations in climate patterns due to human activities, close quote. Why is climate change a pressing issue that directly impacts PNG's national security? Now, according to National Security Policy Pattern 2013, PNG is vulnerable or susceptible to continuously be impacted by severe disasters and natural calamities due to the limited availability of resources. Now, you might be wondering what specific resources NSP is referring to that PNG lacks. To enlighten you, PNG faces a high risk of natural disaster due to its location along the Ring of Fire, leading to severe impacts on its population. Man-made disasters result mainly from faults and lack of compliance with global and national security standards. The country struggles with the lack of preparedness, organization, and timely response mechanisms, hampering its ability to effectively address disasters, especially as a developing nation. Now, to tackle these challenges as forwarded by NSP 2013, The Office of Climate Change and Development was established to manage and mitigate significant threats like coastal flooding, landslides, coral reef damage, and rising sea levels in the country. In addition, PNG lacks funds to acquire essential resources like advanced technology for early disaster detection, for instance, like tsunamis and volcanic eruptions. And the country also lacks efficient coordination. The country also lacks experts to oversee climate change related issues. This results in NSV being critiqued for lacking efficient coordination in implementing policies, particularly in securing resources to address the effects of climate change. Thank you, and that's our response to the given question.
Okay, thank you very much, Rosa and Group 7. And also we say thank you again to the other reps from Group 2, 4, 5, and 6, including Group 1 and 3 on Monday. Thank you everyone for sharing with us your answers to the assigned questions. I hope during the process of answering the questions and the discussions in the various discussion forums, that you've learned something about climate change and you've learned something from the literature that you have read, the required literature that is connected to the questions. So you take that knowledge with you. In a few weeks' time or in a few months' time, you'll graduate and you'll leave the university and you'll start your life working in various spaces, the media space, development, community development, and various spaces. So you'll take that knowledge of climate change with you, and then it will help you as Papua New Guineans, as citizens of this country, to find ways, find solutions to mitigate the various problems faced by our communities and the country in general because of climate change. You've talked about its effects on food security, on the seas, corals dying out, and it's all connected. So hopefully all of you learn something from this experience, from our 2 weeks of discussion, and then you can take the knowledge with you as you graduate and start your life as a citizen, as a graduate of the university, and contribute towards nation building. So, and that's all for this part of our program. So we have 2 more sessions to go. That's for the final topic. That will be in week 12 and week 13. And next week we have your policy review. Your policy review will be due or is due on Friday. So make sure you reflect on the comments made, and if you need any assistance, let me know. Converse with me via WhatsApp or email, Moodle. And also there are 3 groups. I saw 3 groups already in relation to the third assessment task. You have to do consultations before week 13. So I've met with group 6, 7, and I'll be meeting with group 3 this afternoon. So the other groups, if you are yet to meet with me in reference to the marking criteria, please discuss with your group members, and you set a time during my consultation hours. Let me know so I can create a meeting link and send it to people, and then we can meet for 1 hour, 30 minutes just to discuss on. The discussion will be on your social media awareness campaign. What security issue you have chosen and the rationale for choosing that security issue, and what you're doing so far in regards to that particular assessment task. And if I let you go, the final update is about the tallying. I'm yet to sit down and tally your entries for cybersecurity. So I said today, by today you should know your marks. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that. So I will sit down today, this weekend, and also include the climate change one. I'll tally both of them. So you should know your marks out of 12. Hopefully next week, I'll enter all the marks into your gradebook so you can check your marks to see. And like I said before, just go through, keep your own tally to make sure that I do not miscount or undercount or something like that. Okay, and that's all of you. Please, if you have any comments or questions for the presenters today and those who presented on Monday, our forum is there. The final forum, the week 10 forum will close on Sunday. So make sure you get all your comments and questions posted before the closing time, and I'll count. We still have one pending, that's for cyber security, and this one. All right, so well, that's all my talk service for today. And I leave you all in peace. You all have a good day and a good weekend. And like I said, the groups, if you want to meet for consultation, just send me an email, notify the group leader, select a time slot within my consultation period, and let me know so I can create a meeting link. Not only for group consultation, but individual consultation. If you want to see me, talk to me about your assessments or anything related to what we're doing in these units. If you are unable to connect or understand what we're doing, want further clarification on a particular topic or further discussion to help you understand, you can also communicate with me. Okay, so you all have a nice day and a safe weekend, and all the best writing your policy review, the second one. Don't forget to look at the comments and reflect and improve. All right, so bye for now.